I was up there, so
Love it, love it.
camel back.
Welcome, everybody. Everybody's doing okay today? How many people here, this is your first collider?
Collider?
Yeah, this is a collider.
Can you just define it?
A collider is a provision, a collaboration.
Is that branded specifically for what you
Yeah.
do? Okay.
If you were here Monday, that was kind of my event, but you know, but we'll call it a collider
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
we're great teammates.
this is the demo, it's all the demo, with Damon and Billy. Okay, so, but this is your first collider.
Collider, yes, not first government class.
Right,
Right, okay.
Yep. So my name is Jim Mason Brick. I'm the guy that's been spamming you all. Making sure you make it on time and get you signed up for all the extra colliders that are coming up. I work for Wright Brothers Institute. And I am the program director of the AFRL Small Business Hub. Okay, AFRL is an Air Force Regional Class. If you're not familiar with that. Just gonna go over some quick comments here. So restrooms on side over there, I believe, are we still gonna take a break? We have a break in the middle.
If it's in the agenda,
It was in the agenda, yeah. Okay,
we're gonna follow that.
after Damon, okay, after Damon speaks. But feel free to go in and out, please, anytime. We do have snacks and beverages and it is pay to go. So, there is a, little square out there if you have a debit card or whatever, or if you do have cash things, but feel free to use that. Always like to talk about parking because it's our favorite thing to talk about here. Did anybody park right behind us here across the alley? Okay, good. All right, that's the only spot that's bad. So you can't park there. I want to talk about this, but I don't, but it's, this is our last collider in this facility. So we are moving to, probably the arcade. Already have our next collider scheduled at the hub, which is the arcade. WBI has an office there, so that's gonna be my new office. I got this amazing office back here, but we do not have funding from any government organization in FY25. We're still hoping maybe we have a potential donor, but we're, as of August, they're shutting. We're not allowed to have any more events. So just want to let you know that. So our next collider will be August 15th.
We have a 2-day delay coming 15/6.
Yeah, yeah. So just remember when I sent out the announcement that it will be at the facility.
Is that because a supply contract ran out?
No, so Wright Brothers Institute is a nonprofit. So we count on all our money coming from our PIA, which is the partnership intermediary agreement, Air Force.
Mhm.
So it's a very nice acquisition avenue where you can just push money right straight to us. We don't have to compete for contracts.
Let's not go into a whole bunch.
Yeah, but it's
Let's move on. It just,
we don't have
if we're dealing with change in how we're gonna defend you.
Yeah. Yep. So that is all I wanted to talk about today. But it was after the event, we always have a little get together if you're interested. At your daycare company or wherever. But you're welcome to join us if you like. It's optional. So, but I'm going to turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm Jeff Malott. I'm the Director of Small Business Programs for Headquarters of First Material Command. I'm keeping in my mind, Jim told me earlier to quit wandering from the mic, so I'm just trying to stay focused. I wander. Okay. So basically, You know, we're here today, I typically go through a brief of what command is, Air Force Material Command. And our organizational construct. I'll give you a really high level overview. Because I don't want to take a lot of time from content. We do have a pamphlet over here, and Jim's going to share it with everyone online electronically. And in that pamphlet is a description of all of our centers and the small business organizations that support each of those centers and their names and points of contact. Okay? So Air Force Material Command is headquartered here at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. What's important is the way we spell material. If you drive by the building, right, over there on, I call it 444, but you know, it has the static displays of the jet aircraft, the F-16 and probably I've worked there many years, but I probably can't name exactly what the aircraft are, but it's where the flags are as well. And it's all fenced off right now because we're going through a very large renovation. Okay? It's a very old building, so we're being renovated. But it's spelled with an E, it's material. And what is material? Well, that's military material, right? What is military material for the Air Force? Aircraft, propulsion systems, weapon systems, armament, systems that you, and in fact, that spreads all the way to our infrastructure, business enterprise systems. So, and it starts with the basic idea all the way through its development, research and development, prototype, acquisition, testing, delivery, sustainment throughout its life cycle, and the infrastructure required to support it across the entire Air Force enterprise. Okay? So that's the command. We have 80,000, or I think more like 89,000 employees. We execute a portfolio of about $80 billion. Okay, so you think of that and you go, how did, okay, so all of those major Air Force platforms that you think of that are in the news, they're acquired by Air Force Material Command. Many people don't realize we're here in Dayton, but that's where it's headquartered. And so B-21, the new bomber, KC-46, the new tanker, all the aircraft you think of are F-22, okay, all of that is acquired, executed, managed, sustained, and managed. So we have 6 centers, and it runs through that life cycle I just described. Air Force Research Laboratory, in which WBI, Wright Brothers Institute supports. We move on from there. So that's that research, right? Basic idea all the way through to prototype, let's say, the development to prototype. Then we may acquire, and that's done by Air Force Lifecycle Management Center. And so when I named all those big major weapon system programs and aircraft platforms, those are acquired by Air Force Lifecycle Management Center within portfolios. We call them Program Executive Officer portfolios. And to keep it simple for all of you, for instance, we have a PEO portfolio for bombers. So you can think of the B-1, B-2, B-21, B-52 are in that portfolio, acquired and executed, sustained throughout their, within Air Force Lifecycle Management Center. Okay. So those are also, those 2 centers are also headquartered here at Wright-Patterson. So the command and those 2 centers are all 3 headquartered here at Wright-Pat. Of course, those 2 centers have locations across the country. Then, so in order for, before it's delivered into the inventory, we've acquired it, it has to be tested, right? And we do a very, as you can imagine, right? These systems are highly advanced, they have to be tested, you can ensure they work, right? Air Force Test Center, that's our 3rd center in Dressing. Air Force Test Center, they're headquartered out in the desert of Southern California at Edwards Air Force Base. And then also we have an over water range, and also land range at Eglins Air Force Base in the Panhandle of Florida. And then at Eglin Air Force Base, and then we have really the world standard wind tunnel facility at Arnold Air Force Station in Tennessee. So that's the test center. Okay. Also, we also, in that kind of systems acquisitions, we also manage and execute the nuclear enterprise. So we have Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center. And they are headquartered at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Okay, so that's the fourth center. Then our fifth center, after we've acquired it, it's been tested, it's ready to be, it's in the inventory, it's been delivered, it's accepted, we're operating it, we sustain it through its life cycle at Air Force Sustainment Center. It's headquartered at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma City. Think of our depots. So I always say this, the B-52, you hear it's flown for 50 years and we're gonna fly it 50 more, it's because of our depots. And we have depots at Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma City, where the center is headquartered, as well as at Ogden Air Force Base in Utah, and at Robbins Air Force Base, about an hour and a half, 2 hours south of Atlanta. Okay, those are our depots. Commercial aircraft have to go through depots as well as military aircraft. In addition to the depot, they also manage our supply chain. So you can only imagine the supply chain required for these weapon systems. Okay, so that's the fifth center. The sixth center is called Air Force Installation and Mission Support Center. Okay, and as with the other centers, as you can tell now, they all do what they say they do in their title. That's the key. And that is this. Air Force Installation Mission Support Center. They manage our installations and mission support across the entire global Air Force enterprise as a single, I would say, weapon system or installations. So that means this. Think of infrastructure. So they are managing, and I'm making it simple, our roofs, our HVAC systems, our buildings. And you think of existing, but as well as executing when we need new infrastructure to support new systems. Okay, so that also includes environmental remediation, architect and engineering, but also, and I'm making it very simple because I don't want to take a lot of time, but that is Air Force Installation Mission Support Center. So with that very high level overview, you understand the breadth and the scope of the command, and it makes sense that, yeah, when I say we have 89,000 employees, that's why. Okay, so we are, I think I already said it, execute about $80 billion, and every year we manage that portfolio, 89,000 employees. So quite the essential enterprise to the Air Force, because in order for the mission to be executed, we have to deliver what they need to do that, right? Okay, so within that, we have a small business program. Our small business program, we set a record last year of $9.7 billion in small business spend. Okay, 9.7 billion. Okay, that's covered. All of those centers and missions execute a small business program and are very actively engaged in pursuing small businesses to meet our mission needs, but also build our industrial base, right? We are all looking at, we all know right now that our country is actively engaged in, I call it an industrial renaissance that we are entering right now. And we're very much a part of it. So that's the command, right? Now you're as a small business, we're giving you this pamphlet, so you've got contacts now. And I'm on there as well. And Ryan Evans right here is in my office. We can help you get connected. Okay, so if you can't figure out what center to contact or operating location, contact us. We'll help you out. Okay, so. But within that 9.7 last year, we set records in most or all, not, I would say not all, but in many of what we call the socioeconomic categories. For instance, in a small disadvantaged business spend. And I think we set a record also in HubZone. I'm looking to Damon here, who's in the office as well. He's gonna be. So you look at that and you're still like, oh, wow, that's so big, right? And how do I enter that? Well, that's what today is somewhat about, right? Or is about, right? Is helping you identify opportunities in the data systems that are out there and publicly available. The Federal Procurement Data System, FPDS, and USAspending. Okay? And we have, I should say that my mom would right now say, don't say God, she's a school teacher. Anyway, we've got two of the premier experts that we rely on to do that for us internally. And I will say this, for us internally, Damon Oaks is the person that is counted on Air Force wide for small business data, right? And so what he's going to do is he does it for us internally as well as, for other agencies. SBA, he just trained the SBA, what was it, last Thursday or something? Okay, so, but this is the first time he's doing it for you in small business, right? And what he's going to do is help you identify opportunities, right? And how to scope your search, okay? And I'm speaking for Damon right now. He wants you to ask questions, okay? So ask your questions, okay? Then we have a resource here locally that really is everybody knows Billy, right? I go to the Apex Accelerator conferences and, it's like, who doesn't know Billy? I think would be more appropriate because everybody knows him. But anyway, Billy Brill is really, is just phenomenal, helping small businesses identify opportunities and how to use the US spending application. And so I'm going to let both of them, they're going to give you the decode, right? The decoder ring on how to do this. So as always with these events, I have to read their short bios. So we're going to start. Billy Brill is the Associate Director of Southwest Ohio Apex Accelerator at Ohio University. He has over 20 years of experience in helping clients market to all levels of federal, state, and local governments. His varied roles in business development, marketing, operations, and program management give him a wide skill set to assist his clients. Billy also has experience in helping businesses start, grow, and expand their footprint. This knowledge, coupled with a network of strategic business resources in Southwest Ohio, give him a tool set to help most any business reach their potential. He has received numerous awards for service, including most recently Small Business Advocate of the Year from the Armed Forces Communications and Electronics Association, AFCEA, President's Award from the Dayton Wright AFCEA chapter, and others. And I'm telling you that's a very modest description. So basically, we rely on him for all of that and more. Okay, so now, Mr. Damon Oaks, and Damon Oaks has 35 plus years of acquisition experience and currently works as a small business data and market analyst with the Air Force Materiel Command Small Business Office, operating location in San Antonio, Texas. So Damon is located in San Antonio, has come up here to do this. He currently holds a level 3 acquisition certification in contracting. That's the highest level of certification in contracting, and has a master's of business administration MBA with an emphasis in computer resources and information management. He has a unique skill mix developed over his 35 plus years and considered, he says, a subject matter expert, but I would say the subject matter expert in utilizing FPDS data to help build market research and business case reports to support acquisition decisions. When I tell you that everybody in the Air Force and small business, when we're doing data analytics, relies on data, Damon, we rely on data, but we rely on Damon's data. That's the bottom line right there. So Damon is a unique and highly valuable resource to us. So with that, and I'm going to turn it over. I think Billy, you're kicking things off. So
No. Davis. You're first.
Yeah. Chart, okay.
okay, so we're kicking off with Damon. So
No, I mean, accuracy.
Okay.
Yes.
yeah.
All right, as Jeff said, I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing the data for 35 years. Back when we just used paper, we didn't have the computers to look through the stuff, so I've been around a long time with this. There's 3 sections that I'm gonna be talking to you all about. One is the contract opportunities, which I think is very critical for y'all getting notices of different acquisitions coming up. And then I'm gonna get into the SAM reports, how to find specific information 2 different ways, like look for expiring contracts and where they are. There's a wizard, but there's also a blank report bill. These charts are meant to be just I guess it's a memory jogger for what you'll see in the demo. That way you say, oh yeah, I saw this. Everything, it's just meant to refresh your memory. So let's go to the next slide. Sam, the contract opportunities. If you're looking for grants, there's a different website, go to grants.gov. And you can look for opportunity there. Next slide. All right. When you log on, this is my workspace. Everybody has same type of thing when you log on. I go straight to the search button. That's an advanced search which looks through all the different modules within SAM. So next slide. From there, you go, it comes up to select domain. I want to look specifically at contract opportunities. Next slide. This is the different types of things you can filter for. You can look for a specific organization. You can look for a specific geographic area. You can look for by NAICS code, set asides, or within a certain time period. And these are just drop downs and you just pick them. Next slide. What I did here is I chose 541 or 541311 or what is it?
330 engineering.
541330. Okay, so go to the next slide. When you type it in and it comes up, you click it and it automatically drops it there. That's what's in green. From there, it immediately brings up everything, because I put no filters on the notice type. It brings up all active notices for 541330. And right now, it's a lot, there's a few thousand. Right now, this is also looking across the federal government. They do not recommend a simple search for the entire federal government, or you're going to get your email flooded if you're asking to be notified on every single thing. So narrow it down to a specific focus. Next slide. Now, once you have a search that you hit that you like, just go straight to save. Next slide. What it does is it brings it in, give it a name, puts it there. Next slide. And then it goes into your saved searches. That search is there forever. Go ahead, next slide. Once you're in there, these are all my saved searches. It's been 15 years since I've been a contracting officer, so I pretty much don't have anything saved there, so I just created these just the other day. Now, when you have one, there's a little action block there. When you go in there, you can hit the notify button. And when you do that, every time that a notice is posted that meets your criteria, it's going to send you an email. And you're going to be told, and what it's going to tell you is that, hey, We just had an update to your filter. Do you want to look at just the updates, or do you want to look at your whole filter? So very quick and easy, and that's what we're at. Now, on this, I do recommend that every small business, one of the biggest things when we're looking at acquisitions and why they went a certain way, it's like, well, we sent out a sources sought, but no one replied. I recommend everybody set up what for your product and say, give me every sources sought notice that comes out, because if we get two or more small businesses that respond to a sources not, guess what? It gets set aside and it goes away from full and open competition. And that's what we want to do, is increase the citizens.
And from the industry perspective, it's also one of the lowest hanging fruits and ways to get your company data in front of a potential client. They're asking for this feedback from industry. So when you're talking about entering the acquisition lifecycle, getting in touch with people that are buying what you're selling, an RFI response is one of the easier ways to get in front of your client and start that relationship building.
And when we go to the demo part after the slide, I'll go in there and I'll show you. It's very quick, very easy. It only takes 30 seconds to set something up. And then you automatically get notified. Okay, next slide. And when you turn on your notifications, you'll get a message. Make sure you see that notifications have been turned on. Next slide. And that's it for contract opportunities on how to get notified and look at. We will demo it. Does anybody have any questions right now? I'm very interactive. If I'm the only one talking, I kind of get nervous. And everything. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a way to have it notify you a certain day of the week, or is it they just always just come every day?
I think it just notifies you whenever something gets.
That's my experience.
Yes, and I don't think it's, yes, sir.
What enhancements, I know you have a lot of experience, Damon, what enhancements have you seen on this site versus FedBiz Ops that we used to use?
I think it's a lot easier. Find stuff. It's a lot easier to get notified. I think you have more filters instead of just asking for an X code. You can sit there, you can go by, oh, I only want to see the stuff with performance in Ohio. And I only want to see this next code for this organization, for this contracting office. You can really narrow down to specifics what you're looking for.
Will that be in the demo?
Yes. Yeah.
NICS codes is one thing, but my Apex Accelerator counselor has said that, especially for small business, that product codes are a good way to dig in. Will you cover that?
I'll show it in there also. I'll
Okay.
show it
Thank you.
and everything. One thing to remember, small business size standards are based on the NAICS code. What the NAICS code is just the industry classification that's in. Product service codes is what we're actually buying.
Yep.
That is what we're actually buying. And the good thing about this search, once you start typing the first letter in the search box, PSCs, it brings them all down. Yes, sir.
I want to make a recommendation too, though, if you have a specific contracting office that you're expecting something to come out, you might want to follow them as well, because sometimes the wrong NAICS code gets put in. And if you don't have that NAICS code, you might not be notified. I mean, opportunity this week with the client that the wrong NAICS code was put in, and we didn't see the opportunity, so we had to go searching for it.
And that's actually a very good idea. You have two safe searches, one generally for say an NAICS code, but you really like working with this contracting office, say, hey, I want to see everything from this contracting office. So yeah, that's a very good idea. So any more questions on that? Okay. Let's go to the next one. All right, this first one is the standard reports. Go to the next slide. This is just text I copied from the reports page, just so you say I'm not going to read it to you. But one thing I will tell you, in SAM, you can run reports for a period of 12 years and get up to 150,000 lines of data. This is for historical analysis. If you exceed 150,000 records, which I have done countless times, you just separate your dates. You know, but instead of doing 10 fiscal years on one, do 5. Break it down into 5 fiscal years. So, that's that. Next slide. Okay, when you go in again, when you first log into SAM, all the report utility is through the data bank. One thing to remember, FPDS is still the authorized source for all contracting action reports. That's where it goes. This conversion to SAM, the only thing that moved over was just the reporting. Looking at the FPDS data. So FPDS is still there, it's gonna be there for a very long time, and SAM lets you go straight to the data without going through 3 or 4 hops just to see the data. So next slide, when we go to data bank. Normally, it's going to default to the standard reports. There's 4 pages of standard reports. You know, glance through it. I think there's 29 of them or something like that. I recommend just running them. Go to the next slide. When you pick one to run, this is the same entry stream that you'll see on all of them. Input your dates. If you're looking for a specific organization, you can type in the name of the organization and it shows the list, and then you just pick it. So again, as I said, it's 12 years or 150,000 lines a day. Next slide. Now, when you go in and run a report, there's 2, field headings up here in the black bar that I use. One above is data. If you have a report that you run and you want to run it again, you don't have to go all the way back to the beginning to do it. You can just come in and reprompt it. It brings your date filters up, and you just type in a new set of dates. Or you can actually have it sum total, just say show totals, and it'll sum everything, any numeric metrics that you pull. It'll do it. Next slide. Now, when you get some of these reports, standard reports, what you get when it comes is a single line. Okay, that says, you know, Department of Defense, you know, this is how much eligible small business dollars, how much small business dollars. Well, I want to see more than that. So what you can do is right click a column heading and it brings up a list. You can drill down to see more information. Here, I want to drill to the MATCOM code. Next slide. Automatically reruns it, and now it shows the MATCOM here. Next slide. Once you have this, you can export. There's 2 ways. One is there's a little spreadsheet with a little window on it there in the title bar, or you can use the report home column, and at the very bottom is export. So once you export, it's just like any other export that you do when you're saving a file to your PC. Where do I want to put it? Next slide. Now that's just what I've given here in these is a list of all the standard reports that are out there. So you don't have to go in and figure out what they are. Look at these slides and say, no, this one seems interesting. I'm going to look at it and see what it says. Everything, like I said, you just click, it brings it up that entry stream that we saw, and it runs automatically. Now, these reports, you can't change any of the fields that are displayed. It's a standard report. So what I want to show you is, no, I don't want to see this, but I want to see that. We do that in the ad hoc reports. Everything. So next slide. Next slide. Next. And next. Those are just all the lists. And next slide. Now, in the ad hoc reports, I think this is it's a lot easier to do than the old FPDS reports. This is a click and drag is basically what this is for the field. So it's very, once you do it the first time, you're going to remember how to do it. So next slide. Again, that's standard text that's in there. Next slide. Okay. One thing, when you go in to do the ad hoc reports, it is set up, there are 356 individual attributes that you can choose, and they're organized into 19 folders. At the very end of this, in my backup, I gave you all those 19 folders and wrote down every attribute that's in it. So you'll get to see that. Next slide. Okay, so when you go in again, you go to database. Next slide. Okay, where we had standard report radio button highlighted originally, now we're gonna click on the ad hoc. Everything we do or look at is through the award IDB information report. Stuff done through other transaction authority is not part of the small business program. And when they report those, they don't even give us the business size or next code when we see those reports. So there's really, for what I do, there's no need to go in there for that one. So it's always award IDB information. Next slide. Now, when you click that, everybody has the same screen. I've got like 300 reports in there. Yours is probably going to be 20. It'll just be empty. To create a report, you just hit the create button, it drops the new report, and then you go to report builder. This is the wizard that walks you through the process. The next slide. Okay, this first one, there's basically 8 areas of information that you need to tell it. Okay, the first one, 1 and 2, is the date period. What is the date signed of that contract? I want to see everything for a fiscal year. I want to see everything for 5 fiscal years. 3 and 4, never use. That is modified date. To give you a reason why, let's say right now I cut a contract. And it's the official sign date is today. But for some reason, the card doesn't make it in the FPDS until October 1st. Well, that's going to show us the last modified date. So if you want to report on FY24, and you use the modified dates, you're not going to get that contract I just did today because it wasn't reported until FY25. So that's why I say never use the modified dates. That's for tracking down. I use it for tracking down errors. When something happens, I can narrow it down to a specific date. Next slide. Number 5 is, what do you want displayed on the report? Right here on the left, these are the 19 attribute folders. If you click on them, you will see, the individual attributes. And once you get to those attributes, you got your arrows to take it to the right to put it in the actual report. Or if you do it on accident, you can send it right back. So next slide. Again, number 6 is, what do you want to count on the report? So that's your metrics. Do I want to count dollars obligated? Do I want to count number of records? Do I want to count the total contract value? That's what this is for. Again, all you got to do is click that arrow or highlight it and click it to the right. Just a simple click and drag. Next slide. Number 7. This is, what is your data set? So if I only want to look at a certain fiscal year, I'm going to go into the contract dates attribute folder and say, hey, only give me FY25. You'll take the attribute across. Next slide. And you'll do number 8. This is the metric range. I recommend do not use this. Depending on how the contract was written, it could have 25 plans that are each, say, $10,000. Okay, well, depending on, information on there, it could have theoretically created 25 cars. But it's all the same contract number, so if you say, hey, give me everything over 50,000, it's not gonna show. Because it's looking at individual cars in the system. So all I can say is be careful.
A car it's what's called a contract action report. Have you said, I don't think you've
I didn't
defined.
say what it was.
Yeah, every contract action that's completed out there in the federal government has to complete a contract action report that has how many questions? A lot.
Oh, tons.
Yeah, a lot of questions, many of those questions have to do with the type of acquisition or set aside it is. Okay, so Damon will be showing that. So but basically, that's what we call it a CAR, but it means contract action report. And it's done for every contract action that is executed.
Oh, and one thing I didn't mention, when you're pulling this stuff, this is all non-classified. So any stuff that's classified, you're not gonna find in here. So, and that's really it. And then, go to the next slide. And again, it runs a report. Again, if you right click the column heading, it's got the drill capability. If you forgot to put a field there. And everything, so it's there. I always tell people when I do this, the right mouse button is your friend inside here. Because you can right click anywhere and all of a sudden there's these options that you never thought were available. Okay, next slide. Again, I drilled again by Matchcom. The same as before. Next slide. Again, export. Next slide. Now, here's where I primarily work in is the blank report. This is where you build everything yourself. You're not using a wizard to walk you through it. It's still click and drag when you do it. One thing to remember when doing these and setting them up in the report builder, it is what I call an and when you do your filters. In other words, if you put in one filter and then put in a second filter, it means it has to meet both those criteria. It's and. So if I wanted to search for veteran-owned small businesses to get or service disabled vets to get the whole picture, I gotta look at service disabled vet and I gotta look at service disabled vet joint venture to make sure I get everything. Well, it's only an and. If I have two filters that say service disabled vet and then joint venture, it's looking for an action that's a service disabled vet one and a service disabled vet joint venture. You have one or the other. So that's why I say the wizard is an and. Every attribute you add, it needs whatever you're pulling has to meet the additional criteria. In the blank reports, here's where you can put or. I want service disabled vets or service disabled vet joint venture. And we'll go through that in the set, when I do the demo. Like I said, it's all click and drag. Next. When you first go into it to do it, the public objects are the metrics, things you count. The schema objects are your 19 attribute folders that we talked about before. Next slide. These, when it comes in and you start doing stuff, you have two click and drag areas. The top is for your filters. What do you want your data set to be? The bottom is what do you want displayed? Again, and then go to the next slide. In here, you have the report. You can reprompt again, show totals. Next slide. I like this one because if I'm building a report and I don't like what I pulled, I can go over here and I can go back to the design mode. Oh, let me add something else. Let me add something else until you get what you're looking for. So these are just options in the report home, and of course, your safe is over there in the report home. Next slide. Again, you have your export, next. Now, one thing to remember about exporting, there's a second export button that you gotta get. And depending on the resolution of your screen, you're not gonna see it. You're gonna have to scroll bar over to see that second export button. You can do it by PDF, CSV files. I like to download everything as Excel and use the formatting that they give me. I found it just to be easier, because with a CSV file, you have to turn around and save it to Excel eventually. So you automatically get it there. Next slide. Okay, one thing I like about this is that in the old FPDS system, let's say Ryan wanted to have the same report that I had. Well, he's gonna have to rebuild it on his desktop. And some of these filters on reports, there's 50 filters. Well, Ryan has to build everything again. That was FPDS. Now I can just share it. I get a report and I do the share. Next slide. All you have to do is, if they're a SAM, if they have access to SAM reports, all you gotta do is type their email address in there. And give them the whatever rights. Usually I give people modify. Or, run, there's a run only, so they can run it and everything themselves without modifying your report. And then once you put in the role and the email, you wanna email the link, it actually gives you a link. Next slide. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
From a roles perspective, so Damon's coming at this from the Air Force side of the things. As a small business, your employees can all have different roles with your company in SAM. And that's something we can help you with, whether it's entity registration, contract opportunities, or reporting. We can help you set up those roles management so that they have all the access they need and none of the access they don't. But that's really what will get them there in that report sharing mode, is the correct role and access with your company.
You can start your demo.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stop there. Okay.
Okay. Now, if y'all have any questions as I'm going through this, if I go too fast, just let me know on that. Okay, here's the SAM screen where I'm kind of go in the same order that I did with the briefs. So I first hit the search button. Okay, I want to look at the contracting opportunity, or what's the contracting opportunity domain. So I just click that down and I choose contracting opportunities. Once I get in there, you have these different filter options.
My bad. Sorry. Hit your share screen again. My bad. It's not my bad. I forgot this one takes over everything else.
Oh, I gotta reshare it.
Yeah. I was gonna try to get cue up your slide. Down me.
Okay. Okay, so we're back here. One of the things I talked to you about is on the notice. Okay. If you hit this drop arrow on the notices. Right here, we have sources sought. This is the one I recommend everybody answer. And all you do is click it. Now it's looking at all sources sought, and if you get rid of that list, you can see that sources sought is there. Now, right now, this is looking at the entire federal government. Okay, I need to shrink that down. That's just too many. So all you go is up to the federal organizations and you start typing it in.
We
Yeah.
can type in Air Force.
I just typed in Air Force and it brings up Department of the Air Force. And you can see here that it dropped it there. That's one of the filters. Now I want to go by product, service, or product or service information. Here I can choose a NAICS code. We'll look at 541330. And you can see here on the right, and the list keeps changing. We go up here, I'm down to only 20 results. You know, that's left.
Can you go lower than Department of Air Force?
I tried to bring in AFMC and it's showing, it's looking at agency. We tried to do that. Yeah, you gotta choose at the macro level. But what you can do is go down to the place of performance area. You can do it by zip code or state. And you can see here, I got here, there's not.
There's none in Texas.
There's none in Texas. So it'll tell you immediately. So I take it out and bring it back. Well, now let's say that this is set up, this is a search I want to save. Okay, all I have to do is go up on your actions button and just click save. Or you can actually download your results. You just save it, give it a name. Save it. And now if let's say I backed out, or if you go to save searches, you now see that demo is there. I want to be notified when something's out there that hits the criteria of demo. So over here on the actions, just say notify me. And it brings up that thing, notifications have been turned on. And that's what you'll get told. I said, hey, your safe search has updates. Do you want just the updates or do you want the whole search?
So you essentially now have a search saved that's gonna notify
It will
you
notify me until you delete that search.
every time there's a new Air Force sources sought.
Yeah. Yeah, it puts it all there.
And you could scope that down to state or
Yeah,
those other criteria on
yeah.
there.
So again, product service code, you can go, what is it, R499, which is other professional services. Or something to that, so, and let me show you that real quick on the PNC. There you go, it brought up the search because I clicked on it. If we go to PSC code. The original list breaks out everything by 2-digit identifier. Let's say I want all this. It brings up, you can bring up all the professional services. If you want, or you can choose a specific one. And you see here, as soon as I clicked on them, it dropped. So you don't have to go by a specific PSC code, you can go by a group of PSC codes. So that's it. Any questions on this? So like I said, I make sure you at least set up a source of thought. And get notified of those. Sir.
Question in the Q&A, can you confirm that we should utilize 5700 for the sub-tier to filter the core organization? This is important as there are many contracting demands throughout the Air Force, right?
We can try it. Okay. Here, if you go into the search, you can see over here, there's a sub-tier. So let me back out. When you get in there, we've got Department of the Air Force. What's in the list is just the major agencies is what's there. These three little dots let you go break things down, and I think the sub tier is where you can put in. Well, 5,700 would be Air Force. Actually, there it is. Just taking them off. I'm not sure if, I'll try the DoD here.
Well, and that's where, so the way it's set up is the Air Force is actually a sub-tier of the Department of Defense, right? So we kind of get caught in this, how granular do we go conversation. There are something called DODAX, which Damon's very familiar with, that I'll be demoing as part of our market research that can quickly and easily get you down to the awarding office level, which is a couple of tiers lower and very much more granular than that Department of Air Force 5,700 sub-tier.
So you're talking about it's filtering for like the office level, like.
It won't let us, from what I see here, it will not let us filter below the agency level.
Because technically the Air Force is considered a sub-tier of the DoD. So they get stuck in that hierarchical search mechanism, where we have tips and tricks and ways around it. By pulling in some external data and then using that as part of your approach for search. And you'll see that in a second.
Yeah, I recommend if you want to break it down some, add in the geographics.
Yeah.
Give it a state. That way it shrinks down the amount of data that you're gonna get.
There's
When it
also,
displays, it's gonna display by ODAC.
yeah, there's also information out there, like when they're saying DODAC, Department of Defense Activity Address Code. So like, for example, on a lot of the slides I show, it will show all the various DODACs for Air Force Lifecycle Management Center that's specific to those POs or offices.
Okay, any more questions on this? Yes, ma'am.
Speaking of the award offices, will you guys show us specifically how to go look for awards in your, like, agnostic to agency, but following what awards in your product codes?
Well, and I guess in the ad hoc reports, you can actually build one that you can run periodically that says, I run it once a week and I want to know for this contracting office. All the awards that are done there.
But what if you didn't care about the contracting office? You're just saying, in my industry, who's
Oh,
getting?
yeah, you can just type in an Xcode, you can see all the awards.
Yep.
We'll cover that in the
report.
report part. Okay, anything else?
This is just notices on sources.
Yeah. This is just for notices that come out and said, hey, we've got something new coming up. The reporting is more of what has been done in the past. So two things. One is pre-award, the standard reports and ad hoc reports are post-award. Okay? Anything else? All right, let's go ahead and move on to the report.
Can we let's stay there real quick. I just want to show something. We got on DODAX. I just want to make sure everybody understands. Right here.
Speak up.
I'm gonna speak up. Hopefully those online can hear me. That FA 8224 is what we refer to as the DODAC. DoD Activity Address Code. So that's gonna identify for you what where the buying office is. You can Google that. You're also, where do we go for DODAX? I mean, I just put out there on a Google, but
Every past contract award has an awarding office and a funding office.
Yeah.
So like you say, Chuck, very geniusly,
yeah.
if the Air Force buys it once, they usually buy it again. So we want to know who those folks are, and then all that information is on the award search.
And so that's why David's gonna go on now to the reports, because that's important for you to identify offices that are buying what you're selling. Okay, and that's gonna be the DODAC.
Is the DODAC the awarding office or the funding office?
It's awarding, the DoD is the actual awarding office. They called it so many things over the years. A VPN, a DoD, you name it. That first 6 digits is gonna identify your, that will identify the awarding office. If you wanna see the funding office ID, it's another field in there. And it's another 6 digits. If it starts with an F, you know it's Air Force.
W, Army and Navy, you start to kind of get the hieroglyphs, if you will.
So is the awarding office the one that is selecting who wins the bid?
Yes, that's the awarding office.
And you'll see on my slides, for any opportunity, you need a requirement, you need funding, and eventually a contract. So requirement, awarding,
Okay.
funding, and then hopefully contract, RFP, RFQ, that could be exit.
Every Air Force SAT and every Air Force contract is going to start with the DoD, that FA and 4 numbers. Okay, so that's always there, and that's the activity address.
Makes sense.
Okay, anything else? Okay, we'll do, just a quick demo on the reports. Like I said, the slides that I showed are meant as memory joggers. It's actually not that difficult to go through the reports. Don't let it overwhelm you. It's relatively easy to learn. So now we're gonna go into the reports. That is in the database where the reports are.
I'll be sending out these slides tomorrow, okay, so.
And don't be intimidated to get in there and play around with the data. These
not.
are public facing sites, so they're meant for public use.
I will tell you this much, how I learned all this stuff. When I always get into new systems, I try to break it. Just try. You know, if the button's not red or it doesn't say launch, try it. You know, it's as easy as that, just try it and see what happens. Okay, so you can see here, it defaults to the standard reports. We're gonna go to ad hoc. When we go to ad hoc, we have to choose award IDD information. It's come up, this is the list of reports, we're gonna go ahead and build one real quick, we're gonna go through the report wizard. Or the report builder, go to create, hit new report, and then report builder. And it's now brought up those 8 questions to ask. So we're gonna look over, say FY23 data.
And FY23 is what dates? Just so people,
October 1st of 22 to September 30th of 23. The
That's-
government fiscal years always start on October 1st of the 2 years behind.
And that's Fed. State, yeah, Fed, states, July 31st,
Oh, gotcha.
or July, yeah.
Okay, so I've done 1 and 2, put in the dates, I don't do 3 and 4. So now we want to get into what do we want to display on the report? Well, first thing I want is the contracting office, I want to know what contracting office it is. Okay, that field is going to be in the department and agency information. It brings up all the fields. And I want the contracting office. I usually choose the contracting office name because it gives a 6-digit DoD. And most of the time, at least in the Air Force, gives the actual office symbol. Of the contracting office. So contracting office is gonna display, now I want the NAICS code. That's gonna be in the product or service information folder, and that's why I gave you that fourth set of slides. Those these 19 folders with the 356 attributes are broken down for you in there, so you have something to look at. And if you convert it to PDF, you can run a search on it.
So he didn't display those yet, but I'll send them out to you. The fourth deck he's talking about.
Okay, so I chose product or service, there's, 21 different attributes you can choose. Let's say I want to display the NAICS code. And I want to display the description of the requirement.
Yeah, that's super important. That description of requirement, I would recommend you always get that.
Okay, now, since we're looking at basically a post-award system, I wanna know the contract. In the contract numbers, there are the data structure in SAM FPDS. There's actually what I call the primary key for an individual record. Actually, there's 4 separate fields you need. When looking at just a contract action, there's actually one of the fields you don't have to add. And if you're only looking for new contract awards, there's only 2 of them that you need. And I'll show you all of those and kind of explain how they work together. So I go to contract identification. The first thing you want to use is the reference IDV PID. If this is a contract based on that was done on an awarding vehicle, like some of our IDIQs, you're gonna have a reference IDV PID. Okay, so now we're going to bring that across.
Okay, Damon, I'm gonna do some translating. Okay. So, when he says reference IDV PID, if you're not in the government or in acquisition in the government, you're like, well, what is that, right? I mean, so all that is it's the individual procurement identification, okay? And so when he says that the re-award effort, okay, is either under a contract, so it's a contract, or it's an order under what we call an ordering vehicle, or what Damon just referred to as an IDIQ type contract, which is indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract, IDIQ, which is really, I'm making it simple, an ordering vehicle. And it allows us to place orders. So those were buying it, but not as a contract, but as an order under an existing contract. So any questions on that? Does everybody understand that very basic kind of description? Okay. So you have IDs, individual ID at the contract level, and then at the order level.
Okay, the next field you want is the PID, which is the procurement identification number. That is the contract number. That will either be the order number against one of these IDIQs, or it will be what we call a definitive contract or a standalone, to purchase, just a specific item. We're not gonna reorder under that contract order.
So Damon, would you just describe what the difference is between those two fields? The
Okay.
reference ID.
Okay, both of them hold a contract. To give you an idea, if you hold a GSA schedule, your GSA contract number will be in the reference IDV PID. And then your actual order number to that vehicle will be in the PID. Okay, if we have a standalone contract, it's what we call a C contract or a definitive contract, for a purchase order, that's only gonna be recorded in the PID. Because it's not bought off of an ordering bid. Now, one last thing on here, to identify, when you're looking, the next piece, which really is the three items that you gotta have. The next one is the mod number. This will let you know if you're dealing with a new contract or one that we subsequently did modifications. We incrementally funded it. Every time we incrementally fund, we gotta do a mod. But I wanna see the basic contract only, that is where the mod number is 0. The modification number field at FPDS will never be blank. It's either 0, which means it's a new award, or it'll have a 6-digit POO, P something, or A something, or something like that in there. Anything other than 0 is an actual modification to the contract.
We got a question coming in from online. Can you explain the difference between a PID and IDV/PID?
Okay, the difference is the reference IDV PID is the ordering vehicle contract number. That is an ordering vehicle, it's a contract that allows us to place orders against it over time. That would be a BPA number is another example.
IDIQ.
An IDIQ of an IDV PID. Now, when we place an order against that ordering vehicle, then it puts a separate order number in the PID. Now, like I said, if it's not an ordering vehicle, the reference IDV PID will be blank.
So the hint here is always pull both.
Yeah, always pull both just in case. I'd hate for you to research a contract that you see. Well, it turns out it's an order against an ordering vehicle, and there's still 10 years or 5 years on that ordering vehicle. So that's why you really need to look at this.
But it's also a great tool for folks in industry who can't afford the GovWins of the world.
Yeah.
To get some of this IDIQ BPA data that's
Yeah.
otherwise not available
Yes.
very easily.
Okay, so that's it. We got that. We're gonna show the contract identification, what it is, what's the next code. You can put the PSC code in if you want. And who did it. The lady there mentioned something about funding office. In here, they do have, funding office information. You can hit the up arrow, go to your funding sources. In that folder, there's not a lot of items. There's only 9 attributes in there. And I'm going to choose the funding office. I'll choose the funding office ID, just so you can see. Okay, that's done.
Also select the PSC code.
Okay.
That. This is, so that's a good.
Again, go to product service information. And then you have your PSC code. What you do is click it and hit the arrow. Now the PSC code is part of this. If you scroll down, you can see that it dropped it there. Okay, so this is what's going to display on the report so far. Now we want to go into what do we want to count? Well, we want to know how much has been obligated so far. And we want to know the total contract value. So we send those 2 items over. Again, it's just a click on the file and get the arrow. That's all it is. Now, right now, this report is going to show all that information for the entire federal government. Here's where you can break it down to a specific MATCOM. You can break it down to one of our centers, or you can break it down to an individual contract. All depends on what you want to do. What I'm going to do is break it down for our MATCOM, which is AFMC. I only want to see AFMC stuff, not the entire federal government. So again, we go to department and agency information. We open it up. and we'll look for match com code. This, you can click it across. What I usually do in here is that qualify button, I always see if there's a select. If there's a select, it will bring me a list to display. So I go list. And then right now, you gotta choose the empty. You haven't told it what to select in the list yet. And just hit that. Here's the list. Now I can search for AFMC. Click it, drag it to the right. So now what it's gonna do, it's gonna show me only the data within Air Force
Can
Security.
you go back, just,
Yeah.
it'd be easy to go back, I just want to explain to everybody, sorry for those on.
It does have a microphone.
No, I'm talking about the camera, I'm
Oh,
just
you're
talking,
fine.
I'm standing in front. But anyway, so, major command, when we say Air Force Material Command, it's a major command. And there are other Air Force major commands, click on that. So you're gonna do major command. And you're gonna see all these other commands listed. Okay, can you go back up, David? Okay, so we saw Air Force Material Command. Okay, but you see here, right there at the top says AETC, that's Air Education and Training Command. AFDW, Air Force District of Washington, they buy for everybody in the belt, in the capital region. Okay? Air Force Global Strike Command. If you see those and do not know what they are, Google it. And they'll tell you what they are. Okay, easy. And so then, David, you're gonna then select a list for AFMC. Go from there.
Okay. Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, when Jeff gave his intro at the beginning, he talked about AFMC 6. Well, let's say I only want to look at, our life cycle management center up here at Wright Patterson. The way the structure of that PDS is, our centers are identified by the sub-command 1 code. That will list the centers. The sub-command 2 code will list our PEOs. So that's a specific subgroup of the center.
Now, the PEOs, to remind everybody, remember I said there's portfolios within Air Force Lifecycle Management Center that's part of the command. So the PEOs, program executive officer, runs a portfolio. So there could be a PEO bomber portfolio, a PEO advanced aircraft and fighter portfolio. There's an ISR soft portfolio, which is intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, special operation forces. I would say for most small businesses, I mean, at our level we're talking today, if you're not in professional services or in tech, then I would say you don't have to be too concerned with the PEOs because what they're buying are major systems, right? I would probably, just to make it easy, but like Damon said, go in there and pull reports, because it's all there. I would say, do what Damon's suggesting and go at the central level.
Yeah. So what I'll do is on the sub-command 1 code, instead of dragging it over to the right first, I'm gonna hit the little arrow next to it. What it does is it actually loads the list here instead of doing it on the right. And if we go down and here's LCMC, I highlight it, drag it across. And you can see there, it automatically formats it into the selected list. So there's 2 ways you can drag your data over.
Don't leave this yet, Damon. So I want to define some things here. Okay, so we said Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, AFNWC, Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center. These are all part of the command. Air Force Research Laboratory. AFSC, Air Force Sustainment Center. Look at this bottom one, AppWorks, what's that? That's SIBR. That's our SIBR program, Small Business Innovative Research Program. Okay, again, you can Google these. As I scroll up a little bit. Let's look at the top. AFIMSC, Air Force Installation Mission Support Center. FICA, and then AFICC. This is the only thing I find, with certain systems out there, right? Unless you know, those are both the same thing.
They renamed.
They've renamed, so when we look at it, we know, you may not, but, I'm just saying that you're gonna find that with, systems. So basically, that's what this means in here. You can Google these, right? And go from there. When it says AEDC, that is the wind tunnel facility I talked about down in Tennessee. So again, Google these when you're in here, you'll be able to find them, or you can just contact us and we can help.
Okay, so the data we're gonna look at is AFMC, we're looking at LCMC, that center. As I said before, we do not want to do the metric qualification. When you do the report builder, you gotta save it first. So down in the lower left, we will hit save. Oh, I waited too long.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he's gonna
Waited
be
too
timed
long.
out. Do it all over again.
That's my
Good
fault.
thing is, I don't have to do it all over again, because I just hit 3 prompts.
There you
Hopefully, it will hit it this time. There, it brought up my save screen. Nice. What I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna try to get it to show at the top of that list, because I got so many reports in there. So now I'm gonna run the newly saved report. Now, because this is the wizard, when you actually run it, it's gonna go through those filters again, 1 through 8. It allows you to change it in the wizard, and you can change it. You can always keep the report, oh, I want it for FY21 also. You can go in and change the dates. You don't have to build a brand new report for it. So on the lower left, we go ahead and run it. Normally, if you have a report that lasts more than, 15 seconds, there's usually a problem. Now, since we're doing this across the VPN, I'll get it a little longer, but you can see here's all the information. Now, one thing I like about this, I do not like the order of this. I want to see, where is it? Let's say I want to see the funding office first. All I do is click the column heading and drag it first. Now it puts it by funding office, reports it by.
Sorry, thank you.
So you can move these fields, it's just a click and drag, put them in whatever order you want. Okay, you can see here, I brought in the mod number, you can see the zeros here. Okay, those are new contracts or new orders to quartering vehicles. Now, if I hit this up arrow to resort from here, of course, they're all ordering vehicles. So that's there. So that's using the wizard. It's click and drag, all it is. Modification of this report, just run it again. If we go back, you click on my reports. Get back to my screen. You can see that 000 report is there.
Open the report again, I just want to show some things on that report. Point out to folks.
It brings up the filters you can modify, then we'll go ahead and run.
Remember when we talked about contracting office name and the DODAX? Well, there you are, you see the DODAX, there's 6 digits for the Air Force, it's always gonna start with FA. Okay, and if you're searching Navy, Army, they'll have a different outfit, right? You can Google that, and find out what they are, but you'll see it. Okay, and this very first one is, it says AFNWC/PZHL. And you know, oh gee, that just sounds like a bunch of numbers, or letters, right? But since we talked about the centers, you know that that's Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center /PZHL. I'm gonna give you the decoder, you can Google that, okay? PZ is the office that buys for the organization, we call those PZ organizations within it. See, HL is more than likely, if we Googled it, would be Hill Air Force Base in Utah. Okay, but that is the office symbol associated with that DODAC. That's all Googleable, you can find out who that is, okay? Then, the next code, obviously, why this is important, I told you all that description of requirement is because that's a manual entry that the CO, contracting officer, or the buyer inputs. And many times, it may not tell you anything but other times it may. So, you know, because the next code, as we talked about, that's an interesting category, right? And so you're gonna find out more about exactly what they're buying by getting that descriptor. Now, it may say something like, deliver in accordance with PWS, the performance work statement. And you may, that's not gonna tell you, you mean that, I got it. But at other times, it's gonna say, I, you know, bought 15 storage, you know, something very simple. You're like, oh, I saw that. You know what I mean? So that's why it's important to get that. In this case, acquisition of engineering support for aircraft communications. So you move on down, and you'll see these things. Now, again, you'll get acronyms in here because we don't exist without our acronyms. And you're gonna get things like MPP system. I Google it, right? And, but, you know, it's gonna at least start giving you a lead that they're buying. You're gonna see multiple actions here that they're buying engineering services at Nuclear Weapons Center in the PC office at Hill, okay? So it's just gonna start, yes.
I was actually gonna ask a question about some of the fields in the previous screen, like when you're selecting, there's like a lock on some of them.
Yeah.
Like vendor name, say for instance, like if we're looking at awards and a specific mix code and you're looking, you know what I'm saying? I've got locks on some of them. Does that mean I can't get to it?
No, has nothing to do with that. I see the locks also, and honestly, I can't remember what they're for,
Okay.
but I'm able to pull the data. It's something the way that,
Just has to
and
be
I'm not sure what it
identified.
is, you can see the same data that I see.
Okay.
So, I
Try to
think
run a
it's,
report and
yeah,
then we
one
can
of the
check it
report,
afterwards.
I think it's the way you build the filter. Or it's something that doesn't have a list, or something to that effect, so it's locked. It means you have to key in the value yourself, I think is what that means. Okay. So that's this. What we're gonna do now is, again, and I wanna show you something. I'm gonna go ahead and re-prompt this. Because I think this is an important differentiation between the wizard and the standalone.
Ad hoc.
Ad hoc. Okay, when we built our filters. Okay, right here in the filters. In order for a record to be displayed. it has to be an AFMC record and it has to be LCMC. That's what I was talking about, the filters, this is an and, so it has to meet both of those criteria to be on the report. In the wizard, you cannot say or. And what I'm gonna do, based on some of the comments that's come out, I'm gonna build you an expiring contract list. Real quick, and y'all can see it's a sample, but it's only gonna have a few filters, so I'll show you. Okay, so we go back to my reports. Create. And this is a blank report. Again, up front, it wants the dates. So key in the date signs, I'll do FY 23 data. And here, when you start this, you automatically have to edit it in design mode. You don't save first with this. You go straight into the edit mode in the lower left. And here's, the screen for putting stuff in. Again, this is click and drag. It's relatively easy. The hardest part of this is knowing where the attributes are to select. There's 356 of them. So you have to figure out which folder they're in. And that's why I gave you that PowerPoint slide that shows all that. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do, what we're gonna do with this, we're gonna look at all expiring contracts that are small business in AFMC, and we're gonna look at contracts that expire in, say, FY 25. Okay, that's what we're gonna look at. So,
And David, before you start, why is that important? Is because that's gonna identify to you potential opportunities. Because as Billy mentioned, and I say it all the time, is this, that typically in the government, once we start buying something, we buy it again, and it's from the same office. Okay, and so particularly if it's a service. So the expiring contract list is gonna help you identify where contracts are expiring and what they're for, and then you can decide how you wanna market yourself or target that opportunity when it's reacquired.
all right, so the first thing I'm gonna do, when I do these, I always build my filters first. That's what I do. So we're gonna look at AFMC. So we go to the schema objects, which holds your attributes. And we go to department agency information. Since I'm looking for expiring contracts, I want to know the whole hierarchy of where this contract came from. So the first, we're gonna set it up and say, give me AFMC. All I do, make sure up at the top in the report filters, it's highlighted yellow and drop it. Now here you can select it from a list, or you can type in the information if you know what it is. So I'm going to type in AFMC.
But you could type in anything.
Yeah, you can type in any, doesn't matter. I just use art, I'm kind of partial to this command, so I usually show that. Okay. The other thing I want to filter on is I want all the small business contracts. So I go up my folder and I use the business size selection folder. And I'm going to pull in the filter for contracting officer size determination. I bring that in here. This time I'm going to select it from the list. The only options available are other than small business or small business. I'm going to say small business. and hit apply. Temperamental that.
Play on Jim's Wi-Fi.
Yeah, there we go. So now you can say, now we're gonna look at everything and all small business within AFMC. So now I'm gonna build, okay, here's where I'm gonna show you how the OR works. I want everything that expires in FY 25. We're gonna use that. So what I do now, I'm going to go up into my contract dates. And I'm gonna say, give me my ultimate completion date. And I'm going to, right here it says equals, I'm gonna say, we're gonna go. Or is it, there's one that says between. Okay, greater than or equal to FY 25 is gonna start on October 1st of 24. So I'll just say, give me everything after, and actually it's gonna give you your 25, 26, 27, anything that expires in that time frame. So I'm gonna put in 10, 1, 24. Okay, now, here's where the OR comes in. Our expiration dates on contracts, we have two different attributes. On an ordering vehicle, you don't have an ultimate completion date, you have last day to order. On orders against those ordering vehicles and our standalone contracts have an ultimate completion date. I always use that. So what I'm gonna also bring in is the last day to order. Again, I'm going to say greater than or equal to. And apply it. Now, right here, what it's looking at is giving me, okay, the filter's saying, okay, give me the ultimate completion date greater than October 1st, and give me the last day to order greater than October 1st. Well, every contract vehicle has one or the other. It does not have both. So we got to turn it into an OR. And all you do is click on the end and say OR. Now it's gonna look for a completion date of October 1st or a last date to order of October 1st. Now,
That's super important.
yeah, we don't wanna see all the modifications that are out there. So I wanna choose my modification zeros. If you want. I prefer that because you could have, if they exercise an option, you could have dates, different dates, which are gonna create multiple records for the same contract. We don't wanna see that, so we're gonna leave it this way. So now what we're gonna do is go into our display. What are we gonna display? We wanna see the organizational hierarchy. So we're gonna bring in, we know it's AFMC, so we're gonna bring in our sub-command code, click and drag. That's the first field. Now we want our sub-command 2 code. That's gonna be there. Now we want our contract number. So we go to contract identification. And we bring in the reference ID PID and the PID. Now, what this will do is it will summarize all your modifications if you wanted to. We don't want to see that because you're gonna have, every time there's a mod, if there's 40 mods against that contract, guess what? You're gonna have 40 records for that contract. So we went to summer, so we'll go ahead with the mod number, put it up at the top, and say, give me only the 0 mods, which are basic orders.
That's why to know about that 0 is
Very
important.
important.
Because all Damon is sharing with you is reducing the amount of data that you're gonna get, so that you can then really see what the actual awards are. Mods could be anything from what we call admin mods to like, changing certain things in the contract that may have been an error, or changing a person's name that, is associated with the contract, or a title of an office. Or it could be, like you said, put some money on the contract, or it could be lots of things. And not saying that you wouldn't ultimately may be interested if you're doing a deep dive into a particular contract, but if you're just out there trying to identify potential opportunities, then, we're trying to show you how to get your list down to a point that's consumable.
Okay, so we got that. Now we wanna know what it is. So now we're gonna go into our product or service information. And we're gonna bring in the NAICS code. All you do is drag it to where you want it. We want the PSC code. And then we want the description of the requirement. It's a click and drag. Now, are you gonna get a list? What this will do now, give you a list of everything that expires after 1 October of 24. Well, how do I know when it expires at? What's the date of expiration? Here we go back to our contract dates. Bring in your ultimate completion date and your last day to order. That way, if it's the ordering vehicle, it'll have the last day to order. If it's a regular contract, then, it'll have the ultimate completion date. So we got all that. We've got what it is, who did it, and now let's run the report. So here in the ad hoc reports, to run them in the black toolbar, there's a little lightning bolt spreadsheet thing. All you do is click that. Okay. So now what it's brought up is every contract that we awarded in FY 23 that expires in FY 25 or later. Well, that only gives me one subset of contracts. Some of these contracts are multi-year contracts. So what I want to do is to make sure I get everything, I will reprompt this. I can go 10 years on reports. And I'm gonna change that to a 12. So now it's gonna look at FY 13, any contract awarded from FY 13 through the end of 23. It'll give you any of those contracts that expires in FY 25. So, because some of these could be single-year contracts, they can be 3-year contracts, they can be 5-year contracts. It all depends on
Or
the
a 10-year.
Now 10-year contract. And then we just hit the run report again. This time it's at the lower left. And there it is. This is basically every contract awarded over the last 10 years that are small business that expire in FY 25 or later. And you can see here, all these dates, there's one that expires in 26. And you just have to go through them.
It just shows something here, don't move the screen, I'm just pointing out, if you're not familiar with government fiscal years, you're gonna see things like October 31st, 2024, right? You go, well, that's not 25, but for us it is, because the fiscal year started in October in 24. The FY 25 fiscal year started 1 October 24. But it just is, you want to get these expiring contracts and scope it down, because that's going to help you identify that critical question, answer the critical question, who's buying what I'm selling?
Now, the other thing I didn't put in there, because I wanted to show it how you can do this with the report display up, is we don't even know what the values of these contracts are. So let's say we forgot to put that in, so we go back to our metrics, which are in the public objects. Metrics, and for some reason they got metrics twice. And we want to pull the total base and all options value of the contract. So without going back and rebuilding, this is the output, you can actually change the field. So now it's going to rerun and put the contract values in. There you go, you can see on the right input in the values. Now, one thing I want to show you on the values. Okay, when you're adding a metric in, if it's a vertical line, the yellow line is vertical. It's basically on every row, it's going to show base and all options value and then give the value. When you set it up and you put it horizontal, it'll do it all in the column. So that's it, and of course, you just built the report, so you want to save it. And I'll run my weekly save report. It comes up, because I switched the dates to starting in FY13, it saved those dates. So now here's one of those reports you can share with someone. If you have someone in your company that you want to say, hey, here's a good report, let me share it with you instead of you having to rebuild it also. When you run the report, now when the screen comes up, it's only going to have one true form. Again, only to put in the date signed range that you want. Do not use the last modified dates. Okay, I know it's a lot, but it's once you start doing it, okay, print out those slides. Oh, I remember this. This is what I have to do next. Okay. And the last thing, of course, is the export. This export here, choose the option, go with formatting, hit the export again. And it brings it, where do you want to put it on your video? So that's all I have for the demo. Have any questions, feel free to give me a buzz. A lot of times, because I've been doing this for so long, if you have a question, 9 times out of 10, I don't have to be in front of my computer to answer. I can usually tell you what you're doing. So that's all.
You take an email.
Email the workflow.
Yeah, in the pamphlet, you'll see, at the very top it has all the offices, you see AFMC, SB, and my name. If you email that, office, afmc.sb.workflow@us.af.mil, and just start it off by saying, this is a question for Damon or for Damon, and this, we'll get it to Damon.
And normally I try to respond very quickly. Unless it's my boss.
And then,
It's job secure. It's job secure.
yeah, no, and then also, that workflow, we get a lot of messages, so if you don't hear back, don't feel like someone's ignoring you. You just have to go back and say, hey, remember I sent this, we'll get it,
But you saw how quick you can build an expiring contract. So you may just need some reminders on what to put in, but it's very quick. And we just did it for AFMC. You can do it for the whole federal government. You can also say, no, I only want the stuff that with a place of performance in my area. So there's so many different things you can do specific to where you're located. That's it.
And what you just saw was the high school algebra 2 version of contracts research. After the break, I'm gonna take you guys back to middle school, kind of, because I'm nowhere near as smart as Damon, so we're gonna keep it simple, like I've always been successful with. And we'll go through some USA spending, a lot of pretty pictures, some decent contract data, some pivot tables. But we'll try to have some fun with it when we get back.
So we're gonna start read back up at 3.
Yeah, we start back up at 3.
We're gonna start back up at 3 for the virtual folks. In 10 minutes, I can say, thank you.
Right.
Start back up at 1.
Yeah.
And I really did.
I'm not allowed.
Just let me know. when you're
I
right there.
have asked for everything, what we going on, give me, like, you know.
Yeah.
They got it, David, it's like a map, makes you more, everything out in the terminology. that-
Hey, David.
David, you gotta.
You have to either go out or finish later, sorry.
Okay, all right.
Quiet, Damon.
Coming back.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so, like I said before, Damon went with the college algebra version of contract data research. I'm going to back it up and show you guys some basic math and arithmetic here. This is using USAspending.gov, which is a new and improved site. They did, once I found out where all the buttons were, they redid it, did it again. But we'll explore it together and get you guys some good process around that. Before I do that, I want to give you some prerequisites, some precursors to any good market research, and hopefully some good tools you guys can use. Because this is a process. Now, the tools that we use enable the process, but overall, it should be repeatable, it should be efficient, and you guys should be able to improve it each time. Next slide. So what we're going to cover, just some prereqs, recent relevant past performance is what's important. Glossaries and definitions. How do I know what the data means? Next slide. I always start with these services. I'm with your local friendly neighborhood Apex Accelerator. Matt Slavic is here with me. He'll be helping me out in the Dayton region. For the time being, everybody say hi, Matt. Hi, Matt. There we go.
Nice to meet you guys.
But these are the services we offer. I'm the soup to nuts, everything between. A very big part of what we do is market research and bid-match services. Meaning, once we do have your data and your PSC codes, your NAICS codes, your keywords, we can actually send you an email every day about upcoming bid opportunities, federal, state, local, searches 2,500 different federal, state, local databases, and gives you an email every day of biddable opportunities you can win or at least bid. So that's a very big part of what we offer here at the Apex as well, and specialized market research meetings for you and the team. Next. I always go through the basics. What is an opportunity? Well, a lot of people have requirements without funding. That's not an opportunity. You want a requirement with funding. And then finally, you need some mechanism in the federal or state or local space to get that money on contracts. So contract vehicle, whether it's indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, BPA, contract under the simplified acquisition threshold, a micro purchase on a government P card, all of those are types of contracts. So what we're going to do is research the past contracts to find out who's buying what you're selling, who you should be marketing to, and how to translate that into current market contract opportunity research. Next slide. Here's my marketing approach. 3 different full-time jobs. You're welcome. Really what it comes down to is bidding to win. You want to see the bid notices with the ability to bid to win. The one that we'll be focusing on today is what I call our organic marketing. Finding out who's buying what you're selling, messaging them, contacting their small business champion, maybe your prime contractors in the space, working with your Apex Accelerator to efficiently learn more about that organization, their needs, who to contact, and how to contact them, what their protocol is. And then the third one, you're doing some of that today here too. Networking and teaming. As a small business, teaming is very much a force multiplier in the federal space. There are very few contracts that you as a small business can do A to Z and be the best at. So pulling in teams with complementary services, pulling in teams with socioeconomic categories, just overall having a really good stable of partners that you know, like, and trust, that you can bid on some of these contracts with. Not only that, but when you create those relationships, they'll pull you into their opportunities. So very important when you are doing some of this research to not discount prime contractors, possibly your competitor one day, but your teammate the next. It's very much a high school atmosphere here. It's we call them competimates, we call them all kinds of words, but overall just know that you're not just marketing straight to the federal government, you also are marketing to the ecosystem itself. Next slide. So, prereqs, know your codes. Those two websites right there, they are searchable by keyword. They will get you to your North American Industrial Classification System code or your product service code. Your NAICS code, as we call them, are what, like David said, every contract will come out under a NAICS code. But you're also kind of blending art and science here, because the contracting officer putting it out, they may not know that it's going under this specific code. They may put it to a code adjacent, or they may use the cop-out, which is putting it under miscellaneous. All of those are important things to know when you're doing this research, because we will come up with a search criteria mix that works for you. I call it the Goldilocks mix. Using a combination of keywords, NAICS codes, product service codes, location, award amount. Basically, you're building a client profile that you want to see opportunities coming out like that. And that can really, become either 500,000 contracts you need to look at, which is way too many, or you could get 0, which is way too few. You want to get you something manageable, and you're not running this research every day, guys. This is very much a marketing strategy. So, my recommendation is usually during PMRs, program management reviews, during your strategic planning at the end of the year is a very good time to run it, just to get updated and make sure that the changing landscape doesn't pass you by. Know your keywords. Any of your specialty skill sets, your processes. Do you mostly use Microsoft Azure as a platform? Do you have any specialty certifications? All of those can go into that keyword search to help narrow down some of these past the broader codes that we use in the government space. Next slide. So, recent and relevant past performance. When you're looking to set up your searches, no matter what you do in the government space, a lot more so services, but some products as well, they rely on what is your recent and relevant past performance. The government wants to know that you've done this before and you've done this successfully. The government is a very risk-averse organization. There's always that saying in the government, nobody ever got fired for hiring DoD. Well, when you're looking at this, you want to make sure that you're going off your best successes in your recent projects, because when you're talking to that client that you found in your data, you're going to ask, have you done this before and for who? So really, that's how you start working out some of this information that you can use for your contract research. You're going to say, okay, how big was my program? If you have a $1 million program for supplying a service to a logistics agency, you're not going to bid a $50 million program for providing services to logistics, right? You want to keep it within that scope so that you have the strongest past performance when you get to that point with your client. So really use this as sort of your bellwether. Not only can it provide you great market research, but when you start seeing opportunities come through on SAM.Gov and other places, take that past performance and say, should I be bidding this? Or should I get a partner that I can subcontract to, or should we be together? You really want to use this recent and relevant past performance as your benchmark of where you go, who you talk to, and what you did. Next slide. Couple of tips and tricks. Know your customer's language. Well, how do you learn your customer's language? There's a great thing called the Office of Small Business Programs. They fund me, fairly biased, but there's an Office of Small Business Programs or an Office of Disadvantaged Business Utilization in every government agency. They can help you with mission briefs. They can help you with their top 10 NAICS codes. I'll show you how to get to some of them today, but they're a really great resource to start learning your customer and their language. Also, all of this public is data. Jeff's strategic plan is online. Anybody who wants to know. AFRL, their 2030 plan is online. It's a quick Google. If that doesn't work, I'm your guy, I can always get you there, but it really starts with knowing how to talk to your customer, knowing their acronym soup. And then also prioritizing your targets. Dana was going through some of this, but we have small business goal reports, using your network, using some of the forecasts that you're going to see through acquisition.gov and other resources. They can help you start prioritizing, as well as some of the research I'm going to show you how to do today. Next slide. So there are definitions and glossaries. I'm not going to give you the whole data definition dictionary for USAspending.gov. I don't think you want it, quite honestly. But they have a great glossary, and I'll show you how to get to it on USA Spending. It gives you the official definition, but it also gives you the plain language definition. So if you haven't spent 20 years in this space like me, you can click on the plain language. It tells you basically what it means without all the acronyms. Next slide. These are some of the things we'll be looking at today. Not going to run through all these words, but we're looking at the total obligated amount. That's the contract amount. We're looking at the awarding office code, which is what we talked about earlier, the DoD or the activity code. We're looking at the office name, which will basically give you a bunch of letters and numbers together that you're supposed to know, but we'll get you how to learn that. And then we're looking at the recipient name of the UEI. So who's the contract being awarded to, and what is their unique entity identifier? What is their code as a recipient? Next slide. Here's the demo. Go ahead and hit the next slide too. There's my contact information. If you guys need anything, email me, shoot me a call. That's my office line. Not always there. Email's probably more efficient. Always here and willing to help. If I don't got a guy, I got a guy who's got a guy. We can get you to the right place at the right time for your company. Now I'm going to get down and start doing a screen share to kind of show you some of the process.
Let's stop share, okay?
Good.
Log in.
I hope so. I see myself.
Okay, all right.
So what I'll do. Yeah, I'm going to share my Chrome. Yeah, I can see it right here, so we should be good. But I will have to jump back and forth between Excel and.
You can do that from your end.
Yeah, no, give you guys a heads up. If I start talking without jumping, then just kidding. USAspending.gov. This is basically a part of the 2008 Government Transparency Act on sharing data. Every contract from 2008 over $10,000 is included in this website contract research. The really cool thing I like about this website is it's a lot more than just contract data. This is also grants data. This is loan data. There's just a ton of great information here. They have data on the states. They have data on different federal accounts and agencies. Just really a cool site, a lot of different rabbit holes you can go down. But what we're doing today is we want to use this efficiently. So we're just going to go here and we're going to search the award data itself. So when you get to USAspending.gov, first and foremost, when you do the resources, that super cool glossary was right here. That is just a quick pop out. So if I'm looking for total obligated amount, if I could spell it. So you can do total compensation. You could do also, if I'm looking for what does a recipient mean, you can look up the prime recipient. You'll see that it's got your official definition, but it's also got your plain language. So when you're looking through some of these search terms here on the left-hand side, if you need a quick update on what they really mean, hit this glossary. Quick and easy, it's just a pop out for you guys. What I do when I'm using this search tool, I always start, speaking of recent and relevant past performance, I want recent and relevant data. So I'm going to go with 2004, 3, 2, 1, 2019. You know, the past 5+ years, we're not all the way through 2024 yet. And then the next thing I do. So in Damon's presentation, he was looking at the NAICS code 541330. So I'm going to build off what Damon was looking at. We're going to go with that same code in here. So we come down and don't discount the other search criteria here. But I always start broad and then I narrow it down as I need to. So your NAICS code is the most broad capability description that your company is going to have, because it can go from two numbers to 4 numbers to 6. So the broadest will be the 2-number NAICS code. A little bit more narrowed in is the 4, and then your full NAICS code is 6 digits, and that's your most narrow NAICS code. So we will start there with our 541330. Note that your NAICS codes here are also searchable by keyword. So we can do it that way, but since I already know my code, 541330, I'm going to go ahead and plug it in there. Let's just see what the most broad search is. As you can see, they have a lot of different pretty pictures. They're great for program manager reviews. Your management loves to see this kind of stuff. But it's also got some really information here. The results are by category. So as you can see, we are up in the upper echelons of the hierarchy here. You can also drill down and see who's winning it from a recipient standpoint. Or you can do the sub-agency. I always go with the sub-agency. So just from that search, by orders of magnitude in the budget, the DoD usually comes up as your top 3. But there are times when it does not. And there are also always more industry or more potential targets when you go to show the next 10. Sometimes you don't want to target the big agencies because they're the most competitive. Sometimes we want to skip DoD altogether and just stay civil because there's less requirements and standards in the civil space. In the DoD, you have cyber maturity and cyber standards that you may not see in the civil space. There's also accounting practices. There's joint certification. There's some other things that add to the overhead and G&A and work with the DoD that you may want to not start out. But overall, just as a rule, they're the biggest customer. This is a really good breakdown of results over time. You know, when we're looking at the government always buys it again, this can kind of give you the cyclical nature of when they're buying what again. So when you're talking about, you know, when you should start marketing down here. And so by the time it gets up here, you're kind of in the hole to provide that value. And this is really the prime award results that we look for. This is where you're getting all of your award information. Now you can see that there's a couple of different contracts. I think this number is probably way too big for you guys to go through. And when it's coupled with this, that's even more, so you're well over 100. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up and we are going to narrow our search using our product service code. So when I was doing this hypothetical, I said I'm a mechanical engineer because the engineering NAICS code can provide coverage for anybody from environmental engineering, civil engineering, mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering. So that's why we then go down into product service codes. I've done my research using psctool.us, which was on that slide deck. And I got C233, or was it C223? So architect, engineering, general mechanics. So I'm going to go from those 98,000 contracts to 196 contracts. I think that's much more manageable. Once I get here, guys, there's a couple of things that I want to do. One, I always download this into an Excel sheet. And I do that because while this is great from a standpoint of, your basic dashboard, this is all living online. And if I really want to slice and dice the data, then I want it in an Excel workbook, and it's something pretty easy to work. So what I'll do is I will do a new share and show you what you're going to get from an Excel stand. So when we're looking at Excel, what initially gets downloaded is 4 different sheets. You're going to look at your prime awards in the folder they send you. They also have your sub awards, and they also have some grant awards. Grants are great, but they're not really built for-profit businesses. Under certain circumstances like SIB or Small Business Innovation Research, STTR, some grants are, but for the most part, if you're looking at grants.gov, you're either a municipality, a nonprofit, industry association. I'm funded by a grant, but it runs through OU, who's an academic institution. Really what you want to look for is the prime awards. Given that, you don't want to look through all this. There's a lot of great data here, but you're honest. There's no way you're getting through it efficiently. So what I really do, guys, when I'm here, I go ahead and select all the data. If you just come up in your search box, you can pick pivot table and start setting up a pivot table. Probably your easiest way. And I set up 2. I do 1 table for my government targets. So again, who's buying what I'm selling. And the great thing about this table is it's got fields that you can look at. So if I'm looking at obligated amounts, if it shows me the search, you can set up the different. So here's the rows and the values that I've set up already. I've set up the awarding office name, and I've set up the sum of total obligated amounts. Now, with any download, you're going to have this overall sheet that does have a lot of data in it. My advice is to keep it simple at first and keep it broad, and then you start narrowing down. And remember, you'll probably run multiple reports here. So if I'm doing mechanical engineering, well, I may have mechanical engineering as it applies to maybe HVAC. I may have it as it applies to industrial machinery. There could be one that's more in tune with electrical systems. You can split up those searches to get really granular with your data. And remember, this is a public facing site. So don't be afraid to get in there and start playing around with different keywords. You can play around with the different award amounts. You can also get as granular as the place of performance being in different congressional districts. So you can go down from state to county to city to congressional district and really get that granular from the place of performance standard. My suggestion, start broad and then narrow down. And as you get in here, you get more comfortable with the search criteria, you're going to start finding nuggets that work for you. It's called your marketing mix, your market research mix, where you may find that a lot of your clients, they top out their contracts at about $500,000. Well, then you're going to rely a lot more on that award amount search than other criteria. So when I'm looking at my government targets, basically what I'm looking at is the total obligated amount. Then I'm looking at right here is the awarding office name, the awarding office, they're the ones with the requirement. Then you have the awarding office code. Now, remember, but with DoDAX, right? Everything's got a code or an acronym in the federal space. This is a really quick way to see, okay, these are people that are buying what I'm selling. We know that if I'm a mechanical engineer, I better be out in DC talking to the folks that got it. That's just where it's happening. Or if not, then possibly NAVFAC, which is a naval facility. That would be my second one. Then we get down here and it gets a little bit hairy. Who's the network contract office 16? Well, that tells me that it's the Department of Veterans Affairs. And their office location is 16. Knowing what I know from many moons of experience in scar tissue, I know that the VA is broken up into regions by number. So I can then point you to the correct small business resource in that region 16 with the VA. You get better plugged in, you get more information. So that's kind of really the simplified approach here. And using these, you're going to quickly see who we should be focusing on. My other suggestion here. This isn't the end of the road for your research. Because once you get connected here and you get this information, you're going to want to do your research with their small business website. Every one of these offices or sub-agencies has a small business program that is built to give you the information to answer the questions that you're going to obviously have. What's your long-range acquisition forecast? Is there anybody in the organization I should be talking to about my capability? Are there any upcoming events that I can connect with a client and better learn how I can support them? So really, this is just the start of your journey. There is a lot of legwork that you can do in the government space. But remember this. Government awards are pretty high. They come with a base and usually option periods. Like Jeff said earlier, like we'll reiterate again, if they buy it once, chances are they're going to buy it again. The government's a great customer. I've always enjoyed working with them. They always pay on time and they always have more work and they really are gracious and we're all in it fighting the same good fight. So you will have to do your homework and there are barriers to entry that we are here to help you through. So given my top 5, top 10, what do I do with this information? The first thing I'm doing with this information is I am going online and I'm just going to do some Googliness. So NASA Goddard, basically what I did was I just typed in NASA Goddard small business. That's simple. With every small business, can I give you the contact of the small business director? Sure, I could. Would that be breaking protocol that they very specifically give you instructions on their website to do? Chances are, because every organization, much like Jeff at AFMC, they have workflow emails, or they have forms for you to fill out to tell them what your capability is, so that they can efficiently get you to the right folks to help. Air Force Tech Connect, that's kind of their front door. Well, every other agency has a front door as well. This is NASA's, they give you the 10 steps to doing business with NASA. Identify your product or service. You just did that with your mixed goods and product service. Register your business. If you're working with us, then you're registered in SAM. You've probably got a capability statement. Identify your target market within NASA. We know it's Goddard because the data just told us it was Goddard. Identify current NASA procurement opportunities. Well, that's what Damon was showing you guys in SAM. He was showing you how to get to those contract opportunities. We'll be doing the same thing with BidMatch. Familiarize yourself with NASA contracting procedures. Okay, so that's basically how they look. And that's really where you want to start asking those questions. That's when you want to start doing outreach to the small business specialists, directors, your champions inside the fence, to start asking those questions. Like, how do you guys prefer to contract some of this stuff that we provide? Is it through a GSA schedule? Do you do a lot under the simplified acquisition pressure? Do you have these giant contracts that you put out once every 5 years that we need to look at trying to get on? That's when you start learning more about your customer. and asking these intelligent questions. Don't be afraid to ask dumb questions. I do it all the time. It's helpful. But ask intelligent questions after your research, and you'll get a lot more. It's the attention method, right? If they know you're paying enough attention to them, they'll pay attention to you. If you're putting in the legwork to work with them, they'll be more likely to help you with their own legwork on these. And that's really what you want to show them when you're sending them your capability statement that is targeted to their agency after you've reviewed their small business website. With our assistance, of course, at the apex. You know, we help you with getting some of that other information, maybe a strategic plan. If you're in IT, a lot of IT organizations have their own separate strategic plan. We help you really tighten up your capability statement to be a 1 to 2 minute reading. We tell you about brevity and protocol when reaching out to these folks. 3 paragraphs is too much. You just want them to know who you are, what you do, and why you're different. And then also ask some questions. You know, how can we best connect with your organization to learn more about what you do? Is there anybody else we should be talking to? And some other very basic but intelligent questions that can help you start building that rapport. But you know, you're going to have to do this for each of those organizations that we're looking at. So you're going to have to do it with NASA Goddard. You're going to have to do it with Navy facilities. You're going to want to do it with the VA. There was a couple different regions in the VA. So you're going to be reaching out to multiple folks at the VA. There was Kennedy Space Center in there. So you're going to be reaching out to the Kennedy Space Center as well. And doing all of that research up front, and then you're ready for your outreach. Then you have a workflow email, because all of these folks have public information, program center guide, acquisition guide. They're different partnership. And you'll have an actual email that you can reach out to, which I believe is right down here. Also, their top 10 NAICS codes. Go figure, their second most purchased NAICS code is 541330. So again, you know, the market research is just the tip of the spear here. You have more to do, but connecting those points of data and turning them into actionable information. Information you can say, okay, now I'm ready for the next step. And these are going to be your next steps. And you can see here, they actually do have a small business workflow email for Goddard. Goddard Space Center .smallbusiness@mail.nasa.gov. So you'll run into this a lot. All the information is public. They're not trying to hide from you, but they need you to follow protocol in order to get to them the right way so that they can help you the most efficient way they can. Now, as an added bonus, what I've done is we've taken all of those awarding codes. Those are their office codes, right? So when I want to get to Office 16 of the VA, you can actually set up your own searches like Rich had geniusly recommended earlier, based just on client. So that if you do get the contracting officer that puts everything under miscellaneous, like some are known to do, not pointing fingers, but we're all guilty of some laziness to that regard. There is always that just the straight client search. I've gone in, I've actually added engineering services as well, just to show you that, you can get the job on your SAM searches. You have to use your market research, use those codes in that Excel spreadsheet. And it's a bit of a bear, but you can save this and have it notify you whenever anything new pops up with your client codes and your NAICS codes. You can also put a product service code. Probably too much here. You're already down to 21 opportunities. But again, the point of this demo is to show you guys that you can get in here. You can search 80 different ways from Sunday. It's going to be something that works for you guys, so don't be afraid to get in there and play around with the criteria. You can see that when you're searching contract opportunities in SAM.Gov, this has a lot of the same exact criteria that you're going to be looking at in USAspending.gov. It's missing a couple of things like the award amount, because haven't made the award yet, it seems. And a couple of different things like that, but overall, if you build your client profile in USA Spending saying, this search works for me. I know that I'm 501330, I'm C22223. I may be mostly 1 million and under, and I know my work is coming from Virginia and Ohio. You can very much translate a lot of that criteria into SAM.Gov. That way you're getting apples to apples, right? So, that what you're searching over here, that if you're using that same search criteria, then chances are the incumbent or your biggest competitor is then going to be one of these guys. So now you're starting to get into some of that competitive intel type research too. And like I said, one day a competitor, the next day a teammate. So what do we do with this information, right? How do we start doing some of the targeting of the crimes? Let's go back to our handy dandy spreadsheet. And so what I did is I just ran another pivot table. And I said, I want the recipient name and the recipient UEI, and then the total obligated amount. And there's about a million ways you can slice and dice this data too, right? So we could look at recipients, we could look at places of performance. We could go in, you can also get into that brief contract description if you have any kinds of keywords and things you want to key in on. But for today's exercise, I want to keep it as high level and as simple as possible. We want to know who our government targets are. We want to know who our prime targets are. So what I'm going to do here, let me just take and grab this information real quick. So it is, first I gotta sign into SAM.Gov, if you'll bear with me for about 2 seconds. So you can search contract opportunities in SAM.Gov without a sign-in. But if you are going in to do any kind of research on entity information, you will have to actually log into your SAM.Gov account. All SAM.Gov accounts are free. They use login.gov. So if you ever, and this goes for registering your entity in SAM.Gov, if anybody ever tries to charge you to register in SAM or search SAM, please do not do it. Because not only will they charge you money, you don't have to pay them, but they will take ownership of your SAM.Gov account. So when you stop paying them, it is very, very many times more than not, very hard to get your access back because they're jerks. I don't know how it's legal. I'm not a fan of them. And you can tell I said that. If you need any help, go to your Apex accelerators because we are free and that's exactly what we're here to do.
Most of those companies come out of Florida too. Just so you know.
Florida's got enough problems. There's just no offense to Florida, if anybody's on the floor. That's not the views of Ohio University.
I get like 50 emails a day from those types of companies.
It's something that we battle and we feel terrible when somebody does pay, but we do help them wrestle that control back. Again, not my favorite part of the position, seeing that happen. Don't know what else I can do other than post something to LinkedIn at least once a week telling people, don't pay for this stuff. That's why we're here. I wish you could give me $500 every time I helped you, but kind of in it for the love of the game, guys. And I know that I'm still on my Excel screen. I am just getting signed into SAM.Gov. So now we have that paratime page, right? These guys are the big guys on the block. They have this unique entity identifier, and we'll show you how to use that to search for them in SAM. So I'm back in SAM once I share it again. And you can do this with any entity that shows up in your search. You can do this with your own entity if you want. But there's an entity search. So when I'm here at selecting domains, I go into entity search. It tells me I should sign in, so go ahead and sign into your login.gov. I know that Peraton is the entity that I want to talk to because they have all the work in that C223 product service code. So what do? I want to filter by entity, and we can get rid of all of this nonsense there. We want active registrations. Product service code is clean, so we go into entity. I could do it two ways. I could just paste their UEI, which is obviously right there, right? That's the easy button. You could search the entity name, which comes up sometimes. Sometimes there's 20 different entities under the same name. Or you could look at their cage or in-cage code. I always just go UEI. It's easy. And now we have a couple. So we're looking at different cage codes with the same UEI. So what does this tell me? This tells me that they have a couple of different operating locations. They have different cage codes. They may be different plants. They may be different distribution locations, but it definitely has different cage codes. Now I'm betting that their overall registration is probably the same contact. So whenever you're looking for a POC, and this is if the small business makes their record publicly searchable. If you do have trouble finding a POC for a company, we actually have internal tools that we can give you a full company profile with a POC. If their company is big enough, if you're looking at Lockheed and Northrop, some of those guys, they have a supplier diversity portal, or what we call an SBLO, a small business liaison officer. I have a full directory of SBLOs, but chances are they're very findable online as well. Sometimes it just takes some good search through Google. Sometimes you want to get to your SAM.Gov database, because that can tell me that I'm looking for the contracts associate is Marion Whiteley. They have a chief contracts officer. And it looks like they also have some alternates here. So I would probably look at, probably wouldn't go VP. You don't want to start too far up top, right? Just kind of manage your expectations there. But you may want to look at maybe Marion here, who is the contracts associate. Reaching out with a capability statement. Again, researching what they do. Another great thing about this USA spending is when I click on Peraton, it takes me to a rundown of what Peraton does. There are all these rabbit holes you can go down. It's going to tell me Peraton started fairly small, but man, these last couple of years, they're doing gangbusters. So they're a quickly growing company. What do quickly growing companies usually need? They usually need teammates and subcontractors because they can't hire fast. So getting those nuggets, right, and doing your market research before, I can now also talk about their 5 top customers. I know who they are. Well, maybe we have some overlap here with my top 5 government targets. Maybe there's not a subbing opportunity there. Maybe there's a teaming opportunity. Maybe we flip that conversation and we go from, hey, would you like us to sub to you, to, hey, would you like to chase work together, which is always a stronger vantage point to come to a company with than hat in hand, can we have a position? How about, hey, let's build positions together. You get a lot more response that way. So all of this data should be there to help scope your initial email, scope who you talk to within the company. But you know, it could be a repeatable process, guys. It is a lot of work. As you start doing this more and more, also looping in your friendly neighborhood Apex Accelerator, because we've done this a time or two. You'll start getting these these efficiencies and getting these nuggets that it becomes like a gut instinct. We know that, you know, if we're looking at anything within the logistics or distribution realm, chances are we're going to DLA. If we're looking at hardcore logistics, fuels, things like that, we're going to US Transit. If we're looking at research and development, we're looking at Sitter, 13 different agencies. So you'll start really knowing the landscape, but this is the necessary first steps. You got to do your homework. I'm going to stop there because I know I talk fast, 2 cups of coffee, very little lunch. Any questions from, yes, you have a second.
What does it mean, when you see the spend, for a particular, vendor, but then it goes very negative? Does that mean they had to pay the government back?
That
Or,
could be contract mods, so they're modding the money to make the contract balance zero.
okay,
Are you talking on this chart?
No, I see what she's looking for. You're probably looking for your IDIQs. Or your IDIQs.
I mean, I was just looking through like just a random, vendor that's like a competitor of what their spend was over time, and they have negative, in certain years, they have negative. Money.
Sometimes it's the modification fund, taking funds.
It could be the obligations.
They overfunded the contract.
We'll look at it, because I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, in general, like, if you see the negative, in your market research, is what's that a sign of?
All things can't be positive, I guess. I mean, overall, you will see some, so there is some anomaly in the data, right? So this is based on FPDS, but this is not the authoritative data system. It's, you know, FPDS, grants.gov, those guys are the authoritative system, they feed the system. So there is a lag in some data. This is a guide to update it. But this is very good. If you have a specific contract that you want information on, go to FPDS Next Gen, because that's going to be your authoritative source of that information. This is a great look at the overall landscape and the bigger picture.
And then the other question I had is if you wanted to predict federal spending per administrative oversight, i.e. different presidential terms, right? Would you be able to take subsets and compare it at all in any of these tools, or just only looking at the fiscal spending over the year and just seeing the trends?
So if you're looking at what's coming next, each agency has a congressional budget justification. So just you're setting the table here, love it. So what we can do is we can explore this data. We can go to the agency now. Mind you, there's 108 different agencies, right? But it is not terribly granular.
And this is per fiscal year, like you guys were talking earlier?
So the congressional budget justification, yeah, will be fiscal.
So if I'm hearing you right, that means, October 1st, new numbers would be published essentially?
So their budget justification has to go through Congress and through that budget process. It usually is every year, but it's not always.
It's not.
Just because it's justification doesn't mean they're getting all the time. It does help you prioritize their programs.
We have what's called the FIDET, the 5-year. The acronyms have just left me. We call it
Defense
FIDET.
plan.
It's like
Defense plan.
Oh,
Two-year
yeah, a 5-year defense plan. So basically, and we had, and you can go to the reporting, because we had a POM, what we call a PPBE, the Planning, Programming, Budgeting Process Collider 2 weeks ago. And it's on the reporting on that. She goes through that process.
So
It's not my area of expertise, but it is an annual process. However, it's not for the next year, it's 2 years out. I mean, we're always, and she'll go through that on how that's constantly being, analyzed, refreshed. and the cycle.
So on that note, though, is it fair to say that if there's a 5-year award or a 10-year award, kind of related to my other question, any modifications can come, right? Meaning that the budgets can get cut in that contract or no?
Yeah, don't necessarily think in the budget, you're gonna see these contracts.
Right, budgets are very much, especially on budget justification, to Congress, they're.
It's a different, you'll see things like, and anybody in the government here wants to correct me or this fall. Basically, you will see things in the budget like, buy 65 F-35s. It doesn't have the contracts that are going to be.
It's just a goal and a target. or
Well,
budgeting.
it's the budget saying, I'm giving you this much money to buy this. Okay, that's in the budget. And there will also be our operations and maintenance funding. Each one of these will not be listed in the budget. So it's probably gonna be difficult for, the correlation between what's here to the budget is probably going to be difficult. But, I don't know, Damon, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, one thing to remember, when they're talking the budgets, what FPDS holds is contract data. There may be stuff in the budget for a specific organization that's for their comm services on base. Licenses that they're civ pay, civilian pay. So those budget numbers you see at the top are not necessarily what's all gonna be going on the contract. Now, you can get an idea of the spending patterns over time and FPDS to say, hey, we're moving up. And, per fiscal year, we average, just say it's an average increase 5%, 10%, 20%, whatever it is. You can follow that trend, but it's not a guarantee.
And we do have a question, open question that I can't answer, Billy.
Sure.
I've also seen information on other USA spend searches. Are the loans referenced government loans and intended to show that vendors are either keeping up with payments or not?
So a lot of the loan information that we saw was during COVID. And that type of information, but you also had things flowing down from states as well. So you can see some state interaction there.
Is that for grant monies like the PPP program or?
Right,
Okay.
small business loans, but you also get an SBA, who gives out, pretty sizable amounts too. I would say, I hate to answer myself, it depends. So type, organization, amount, on what that data is going to show. When you're talking about the overall forecasting or budgetary data, you can serve a couple of different ways. As an intern, many moons ago, I used to have the explicit pleasure of going through the NDAA every year or whenever they got approved and looking at line item by line item by line item. You could do that. I wouldn't suggest it. You could also go to acquisition.gov and look at the agency borders. While it's not going to give you a definitive number or even contract information, it's a really good way to look at some of their recurring procurements, but also some agencies actually update them with expected procurements as well. So we call them LRFs, long range acquisition forecasts. Every agency has one on acquisition.gov for the most part. The ones that, that's also the other reason that you want to spend time on these small business websites. A lot of these small businesses, for example, I know Mr. Luke Schultz back there with LCMC. You guys do your own forecasting, correct? Expiring contracts.
Yeah, and we have the expiring contracts list out there for AFL-CMC that was done up by AFMC Small Business. Thank you very much.
And so that ties back to Jeff, right? So you know, they're giving you some.
Well, we have
information.
all you need to do is email our workflow and ask for our expiring contract list. And it'll include the expiring contract list that Luke referenced, as well as for the rest of the centers in the command.
And a lot of these small.
And Damon is the one that ran.
Yeah, I mean, David's Mr. Guy there. Yeah, okay.
How about the small business liaison offices at the primes? In people's experience, do they tend to be pretty responsive and helpful, or is that just kind of a perfunctory thing that they're required to do and they're maybe not as helpful as we wish they would be?
So, well, here's my thought about that after many, many moons in this business. You could be providing a part of a subsystem that's part of a subsystem, right? In that case, are they really your money? You may, and I teach my clients how to do this a lot. That's how you get down into that award amount criteria, where, you know, if you're part of smaller, the award's smaller. And so you may be searching for a third tier sub. And you want to reach out to that third tier sub and get to their person. If you are providing, they're very big on R&D. They're big on the integral part of the supply chain management. They are helpful. They want to be helpful. As with a lot of small business positions, I can't get to everybody at once. For example, here in Southwest Ohio, we have about 720 clients. It becomes a staffing and resourcing issue. I think they mean well, but it may just be wrong target. Yes, Joe.
Billy, in addition, we have a question about contact information. Would you just say how to contact you again one more time? For Damon, as I'll reiterate, and I'll put it in the chat. And for those in the room, it's in the brochure that those that are attending virtually are going to get tomorrow. afmc.sb.workflow@us.af.mil. That's how you will contact if you have a question for Damon. When you go to that, just say, this question is for Damon. Chelsea in our office monitors that and she'll send it to Damon.
They all have great small business websites.
There's one more thing that I forgot to mention when using FPDS data. If you got a contract awarded to you today, you're not gonna see it in FPDS for 90 days. There's an automatic 90-day window that that applies to all non-DoD people. So even, the Apex accelerators, their data is 90-day delayed that they're, looking at FPDS data.
Unless you go into SAM.Gov and you start searching award notices.
Yeah.
Special notice. Another kind of tip and trick when searching SAM.Gov at contract opportunities, a lot of agencies, they tend to use it for events as well. So once you know the agencies you want to work with, you can set up a special notice and search industry days. And then you get notified whenever that client has an industry day. Yes, Richard, back.
If you go back to your NASA tab,
No.
most of small business, or not most, but some small business offices have like a vendor portal. I recommend signing up in the vendor portal because if you start getting their like newsletters and when they're doing events, they'll push that stuff right to you. So that's a good practice as well.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. They have ways for you to push your information to them, whether it's a form, upload your capability statement, fill out form for a capability briefing. I know DISA has a 1 hour or probably more, a webinar that they want you to attend before giving you that 15-minute briefing. So there's a protocol, there's a process here that we want to make sure we follow those instructions and get off on the right foot. And this was just sort of that first piece of the puzzle to get you guys into that process.
That's all I got, Bill. Yeah, I had a feeling they were going to be in there. Anyway, any other questions for Billy? And Damon, you're going to tell us if we have any online. And then, any questions for Damon?
Oh, with that, I'm going the way.
Well, okay. App title today, right? We called it Masterclass. Okay, so we gave you excruciating detail, I know, but basically this is how you do it. Okay, now there's some easy buttons out there, right? If you're wanting to know the expiring contracts for Air Force Material Command, across the entire command, all you gotta do is email that workflow and ask for it, right? But we've also given you the tool to run the expiring contract list yourself for the entire federal government. Okay, so if you're targeting any other agencies out there, right? So I mean, that's a great tool. Then Billy has given you another way to look at the data that's gonna help you hone in on potential requirements at their location, buying office, and also super important as a prime, because many of you are gonna enter as a subcontractor or a vendor, super important. I will say this is like that question about being in contact with the primes. I thought it was a great comment that someone made in the room about getting signed up on their portals for their notices. Last year at Lifecycle Industry Days, or 2 years ago, the Boeing SDLO lead said, be persistently patient. Okay, so what does that mean? You've got to market yourself and keep knocking on the door. Same thing with the federal government, right? We're a very big customer, and you can't give up. I mean, you can. I shouldn't say you can't, but you can give up. But don't feel like that you have to keep on trying. It's just like any other marketing effort you're going after, right? Billy really summarized it in his charts about what you've got to do out there. And it's really a good encapsulation of it, right?
Three different full-time jobs, guys. That's all you need to do.
But, honestly, a very important part is engaging with your fellow small businesses, your fellow industry partners, because that's where you're gonna find out about, someone that's bidding on something and they have a missing piece that you can fill and you can team on. So anyway, with that, is there any last minute questions? Anything out? Because we're gonna say going on here. Very much appreciate everyone's attendance today. Great big thanks to Billy and Damon. Reach out with questions and follow-up questions. And anyway, with that, thank you. Over now.
Thanks, guys.
Everybody thinks.
Hopefully you'll
Did a lot.
get there.
Sounded good.
Yeah, so.
So you're gonna be over. So located in yeah, but for the pursuit of the interim, I'll be out. So I'll probably $8,000 a lot.
Okay.
That's pretty much. I'll do that.
You're gonna do Dayton, huh?
Yeah, for now.
So you know what's on the list?
That was.
Yeah. Cracking up, 'cause I'm like,
Automatically, things are coming out, because if you're on our email notices, I'm sure Billy sent out a blast.
Definitely something you want to.
Scott. Hi, Scott. So how are you?
Doing well.
That's gonna be.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be all right.
So we're sure you know, you
You're not getting constantly down by it. You are not on your way.
Working on it.
My dog.
At 1:30. Well, yeah.
We didn't.
So you can.